Don't Depend on Daddy is an unfiltered safe space, empowering young professionals to build independence in their 20s and beyond, whether it be personal, professional, or financial. Regardless of your age, relationship status, or job title, the most consistent person in your life is you. So join me and let's build our independence together. Enjoy! Hello and welcome back to Don't Depend on Daddy, the podcast. My name's Michaela. I am your host. I'm so excited for today's episode because it feels very relevant given the time of year. And we're going to be talking all about my menu for traveling and how I stay feeling good or the best that I can when I'm traveling, but also very specifically during the holidays. Before we get into it, I want to let you know this week only, I am running my Black Friday sale on all of my templates. I'll make sure that the code is in the description. It's going to be valid for just this 1 week that Black Friday and Thanksgiving are all happening. All of the details are going to be live on my Instagram as well, so keep that in mind. But this sale applies to the personal finance dashboard, the basic budgeting template, and the FIRE planner. So if you are listening to this during the Black Friday and Thanksgiving holiday week, you can go get these tools for 25% off. And make sure you head over to my Instagram too to get the code and all of the details. If you're listening to this outside of that window, hello, welcome. I hope you enjoy. I still have a code for you, but it's not the same code. So as always, outside of the Black Friday window, you can use the code podcast1 for $10 off the personal finance dashboard, which is my signature money management tool. I won't get too far into it. You can go watch the video where I give you a tour of exactly what it is. But essentially, this is my tool that helped me grow my net worth from negative $30,000 to over $1 million. And I highly recommend using it, especially as you're thinking about planning out your finances for 2026. If you are someone who looks at the personal finance dashboard and you're like, whoa, this seems like a little bit too much for me, then I would recommend checking out the basic budgeting template. It's really designed to help you get into the habit of tracking your expenses and building out that first budget. And then regardless of which one of those tools you choose to use, you should 100% check out my financial independence planner, because this is going to help you map out your plan to retirement with a very prescriptive annual savings target. So you can actually answer the question, how much do I need to save for retirement and how much do I actually need to have in order to retire? So as I mentioned, during this week only that this episode is going live, this Black Friday week, you can go over to my Instagram or check the description to use the Black Friday code. If you are watching this outside of that week, you can use the code podcast1 for $10 off the personal finance dashboard. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get into this episode. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about my menu for traveling and feeling good, particularly during the holidays. So I think we all think the holidays are supposed to feel relaxing to some degree. Thanksgiving is like the kickoff to the holiday season in my mind. But generally, when I go home for the holidays, I want to feel cozy and happy, and I want to connect with my family who I don't get to see all the time. But usually they end up feeling the exact opposite of that. My sleep is off, I'm eating differently, my routine is gone, I'm surrounded by people all the time, and then by the time I get back to my own space, I feel like I need at least a week to decompress, and usually I don't have the luxury of that time because I got to get back to work. And that used to be me every single year. I'd come home from the holidays, I would feel bloated, I would feel tired, I would feel mentally cluttered, and I would feel off, and I would crave time away from everyone and really look forward to that weird week in between Christmas and New Year's. And because of this, actually, I'm going to be coming back to my apartment during that week because I know I'm just going to want to be in my own space again. But this year, I am going to be home, or I am home when you're watching this, during Thanksgiving. And it's just going to be a lot of back and forth, a lot of routine disruption. And I know come January, I'll be ready to get back into my routines fully. But during the holidays, I'm okay with the slowdown, and I do what I can to stick to my routines to the best of my ability. But anyways, a couple of years ago, I started doing something that I call my travel menu. And this applies beyond just the holidays. And I really did this once I started living in LA because I felt like when I did travel, specifically when I traveled home, I'd be home for an extended period of time, like a week or two. And so I needed to figure out what layers and aspects and rituals that are part of my routines are actually making me feel my best. And basically, what it is a menu of habits and small things that make me feel most like myself and most grounded, even when I'm not in my normal environment. The goal isn't perfection or sticking to a strict routine while you're visiting family, because obviously, when you're doing that and you're traveling, your routine is going to look different. But really, it's about having options to choose from depending on what you need that day in order to feel your best based off of whatever you have going on. So think of it like how you go to a restaurant. You're not eating everything on the menu. You're picking what sounds good right now. And this is how I approach like my travel routines. So the holidays are generally one big routine disruptor on a perpetual basis. Like I feel like once we hit December, shit hits the fan for an entire month and we all go into January feeling terrible. You're in a new place. If you're traveling specifically, you might be sleeping in different beds. You might be eating food you don't normally eat. You're surrounded by people 24/7. Like it's overstimulating, it's exhausting, and we're trained to do the absolute most. So we sort of just surrender to this chaos and tell ourselves we'll get back to routine in January. But the issue is when you completely abandon the habits that keep you balanced, you end up feeling drained, and then it's a lot harder to actually have connection and connect with people and get the most out of that time. So, having that sense of structure, even if it's just small touch points, really helps me feel at least a little rested instead of needing a full-blown reset once I get back into my own space. So, here's what's on my menu this year. These are little rituals and they all follow these broader categories. And the categories are sleep and rest, my morning routine, movement, and self care. So I'm gonna go through my checklist and like consistent habits for each of these broader categories. So for sleep and rest, sleep when I'm traveling is my number one non negotiable because if I don't sleep, I feel terrible and I get nothing done. Plus, it's the one thing that I feel like gets disrupted the most when I'm out of my usual routine. So I want to do everything I can to regulate it so that I can get the best sleep possible, knowing that it's still not going to be totally perfect as if I was in my own bed. So a few things that help me get a good night's sleep when I'm in my own space are my Hatch alarm. I take a magnesium supplement every night, a super, super dark room, and reading before I go to bed. So I actually have a Hatch alarm in my room at my parents' house, which is fabulous. They sent me a second one. And to be honest, sometimes I'll travel with my Hatch alarm depending on where I'm going and how much room I have in my suitcase, because it really does make that much of a difference for me when I am sleeping. I also like to make sure that when I'm traveling, I bring my magnesium or some sort of sleep aid no matter what, because if I'm sleeping in different beds, it can be kind of hard for me. So, like, I'll bring a magnesium. Sometimes I bring melatonin gummies or something if I'm, depending where I'm going, like I may bring a little edible of sorts. So, it just depends where I'm going, how I'm traveling, obviously. But I pretty much will always bring magnesium because it just helps you relax at night. And then at night, regardless of where I am, I do my best to recreate my bedtime routine. This is way easier when I'm traveling home to my parents' house, but like even if I'm going on vacation or somewhere, I always like to do the same few things. I'll take a hot shower. I always travel with my red light face mask, so I'll do my red light and my skincare, obviously. I'll dim the lights and I will read once I lay down in bed on my Kindle. It's never perfect when I'm away, but this signals to my body that we're slowing down. And I do feel like these small things are all things I can do regardless of where I am. I will say too, it's also harder to have a consistent night routine when I travel because we're surrounded by more people. I'm not always doing the same things at night, so it's not as easy to stick to like the full routine of working out and having dinner and cleaning and doing all of these things. So I like to have this sort of going into bed ritual of the shower, the red light, and the reading. Sometimes if I'm going out to dinner during the holidays, we have family over, we're going to other people's houses. So if I'm getting home late, I can't do all the things I normally would like to do, but maintaining this usual pre-bed ritual and routine when I get home, even if it is a little bit later, helps me feel more normal the next day when I get up. I do also find that if I don't wind down in this way, I have a harder time falling asleep, but I also don't get as much of a restful sleep. So it all really does make the most sense, I think, to figure out what your little pre-bed ritual is that you can replicate in different environments. If I'm in a bind or if I'm in a situation where I can't do all of these things, my top priority is magnesium in my Kindle. And I'll also usually travel with an eye mask. I don't always use it, but I like to have it to mimic a dark space if I'm in like a hotel room with someone else or whatever. But if I'm at home in my own room and I'm at my parents' house, then I don't necessarily need that. So those are my sleep and rest. That's my sleep and rest menu, like the things that I like to do in order to optimize for sleep when I'm traveling. Now we can move on to my morning routine, which, as you know, I have pretty dialed in. Even if I'm in a totally new environment, I do try really hard to anchor my mornings. What I will do often shifts, or what I will say often shifts, is my wake time. Usually I sleep in a little bit later when I'm traveling, and my like 6:30 alarm turns into more of a 7:30 alarm, which is totally fine because when you're traveling, like generally you want to get a little bit more rest. But as you know, if you've listened to my regular routine episodes, my morning routine's pretty rigid. I wake up and go on my walk, I come home and make my coffee, I'll shower and do my skincare, I get dressed and I start working. And I record this every week for my personal Instagram page if you're interested in watching it. But when I'm traveling, and especially during the holidays, like this is not what my morning is going to look like. And it's because it can be cold. I'm with my family. So, like, I want to spend time with my sister. I want to spend time with my parents. I might not be working full days. So, I have a little more time in the morning to slow down and spend time with other people. And that's totally fine. But I do try to find and choose at least two of these things to do in the morning to help anchor my day and create a degree of normalcy, because I find that if I don't do something from this list, I do feel totally disoriented all day long. Like I genuinely feel like your morning routine, it really does anchor your full day, especially if you're very consistent with it. If you don't do it, your day will feel off. So sometimes this looks like a long walk and then maybe I'll go out and get a coffee with my dad. Other times, like I might go out to breakfast or I might skip my walk and do my walk later in the day because I'm getting coffee and I'm meeting someone or I'm going to a workout class or something. So, it just really depends on what's on the agenda for that day. But generally speaking, I'll always get dressed. I'll try to do my skincare in the morning, and then sometimes I'll do my walk or sometimes I'll go get coffee. It just, again, depends. But the goal is to do something that feels normal to anchor the day. So I would challenge you to really think about what are the things that you do in the morning that make your morning routine feel really good when you're in your own space. And then pick a few of them to integrate when you're traveling. It's not realistic to think that you're going to have a perfect morning routine every day that you're away. And what it will do is set you up to be disappointed. But anchoring your day with a few familiar rituals will make a huge difference, while also allowing you to take a break and slow down and enjoy the trip or enjoy the holiday season, which is what we're all trying to do. So don't totally disregard your morning routine during your holiday travel, or just because it's starting to get cold again. But do know that like laxing it out a little bit is also totally fine. Okay, next category here is we have food and movement. So I'm lumping in food and diet with movement because I think this is like generally overall diet and fitness when I'm traveling. I feel like they go hand in hand. As I have mentioned on some prior episodes, I'm on a bit of a fitness journey with weightlifting and eating more protein. And I'm a few months in, I'm really starting to see and feel some of the benefits. And I do feel like my body is slowly starting to lean out and like I feel really good. So, with this in mind, when I travel, and especially during the holidays, how I eat and how I move changes a lot. So, in my usual routine, I will walk around 5 miles a day. I usually do 3 to 4 days of strength training and then 1 day a week where I'm doing like a Pilates class or a sculpt class. And then I'm eating 3 balanced meals a day and I'm aiming for 100 grams of protein. Obviously, when I'm traveling, it's not realistic to think that I'm going to stick to this entire routine, especially if I'm traveling for more than a week at a time, which during the holidays is usually like 10 days at a time. But again, I'll try to pull out and prioritize the things that will have the biggest impact for me. So, from an exercise standpoint, I'll always make sure to get in a walk or hit my 10K steps. Like, I pretty much do this every single day, regardless. Sometimes this is all I do for the entire time I travel, and that's totally fine as long as I stay moving. I think the consistency there is really important. If possible, depending again on where I'm going, I will travel with my ball of bangles. I have the 1 pound weights, and I'll use those to do at home Pilates or like a bar class if I'm feeling up to it. They're really easy to travel with. You just have to take them out of your bag if you're going through TSA. And, sometimes too, if I can't fit in like a Pilates class or a sculpt class, I'll just toss them on my wrists when I go on a walk, and it makes me feel like I'm doing a little bit more, even though ultimately like I'm doing less than what I normally would. Don't underestimate how big of a difference getting a walk in or like a 20-minute like sculpt class or something can make you feel. It makes a big difference. Otherwise, I tend to keep things pretty chill exercise-wise. If I have access to a gym, I may do a weight workout. There is a fitness studio that's like kind of near where my parents' house is. So if there's a class I want to take and they have some open spots on ClassPass, like I may sign up for it, but it's not really something that's so important to me. I'd rather just prioritize the family time and squeeze in my walks and stuff. And usually I'm doing those walks with my sister. Food-wise, again, I'm choosing things that will anchor my experience overall and ensure that my digestion stays good. For me, when I travel, I personally prioritize digestion over protein because if I feel like my digestion is off, it ruins how I feel the whole time. Like, I would much rather have a couple days where I don't hit my protein target so long as I'm hitting like my fiber targets and my digestion feels optimal. This usually means that I'm sticking to my oatmeal breakfast that I usually have, something high fiber in the morning. I'll make an extra effort to drink water all day long. I don't know about you guys, but when I travel, I struggle so much to drink water and I always feel like I'm eating weird. If I'm at home, I will go do my own grocery shop so that I have some of the foods that I like to eat. I always try to make sure I have things that I personally like because I do eat a little bit differently than most of my family. And if I'm on vacation, I will always pack some snacks and also some oatmeal packs and maybe some packets of protein powder and whatnot so that I always have something healthy to eat in case I need it. Generally, like if I'm on vacation, staying in a hotel, whatever, like I'll do my best to make do with what is available to me, but I never go unprepared because since I am a little bit of a picky eater, I always like to have backups and things that I know I'm going to like. Outside of this, though, from a food standpoint, I feel like I'll generally go with the flow and just make my usual healthy choices at restaurants and whatnot. If I'm going over to somebody's house, again, especially during the holidays, like I'll eat what's available. And if I know that something isn't going to be what I want or whatever, I'll just eat before I go and I'll nibble or have a few snacks when I'm there or appetizers or whatnot. I also feel like I eat a lot of dessert during the holidays and like I don't overdo it, but I'm never going to deprive myself. I feel like I spent so many years of my life not enjoying the holidays because of the food, and I just think that that's really silly. But I understand the struggle if that's a place that you're in. And so I'm very proud of myself for getting to a point where like I can very comfortably eat how I want to during the holiday season and enjoy it to its fullest. And so I don't mind because it's not really how I eat normally. And it's a short period of time. But I also do find that by making healthy choices during the day outside of those shared meals where maybe they are a little bit sugarier or, we're doing more apps or whatever, by making healthy choices in those other instances, I do always feel a lot better overall. Okay, the last category here is self-care and beauty. So my beauty routine when I travel is much more pared down, obviously, than when I'm in my own space because I can't take all my stuff with me. So I will dial back my skincare routine to the essentials. I will say I always travel with my red light mask like 100% of the time because I do that every day. So me going on vacation or going home is not an excuse for me to not use that. It's travel friendly. I take it with me everywhere. So that stays. But in terms of essentials for morning and night routine, for my morning routine, I use my benzoyl peroxide from Paula's Choice. I've been using the Vino Perfect Caudalie Serum And then I use a moisturizer and an eye cream. Generally, the eye cream I use in the morning, I'll also use at night when I'm traveling. I'll just take one. And I find that that routine has been working very, very well for me in the morning. I'm not going to switch it up and I'm not going to bring any extras. And then in the evening, I generally, when I'm in my own space, will alternate between retinol and the Clear Stem Bounce Back Serum. But if I'm traveling, I'll just take a retinol and I'll do a retinol and a heavy moisturizer for the evening. And then I'll just reuse the eye cream. I do use different moisturizers in the morning and night. And I do travel with two of them. I like to use something heavier at night because I do have dry skin. And I don't like to use something too heavy in the morning because generally I'll put on like a tinted SPF or something and I don't want it to get all mixed together. Depending on the length of the trip, I'll also generally toss in a couple of face masks. I love to do face masks when I travel. I do feel like they just help with keeping your skin plump and moisturized, especially if you're flying and whatnot. I love the BioDance ones, but I also still have a bunch from Japan. So like I'll just pull a packet of those and I'll travel home with them and I'll bring them with me and I'll do it like every other night. And I feel like it just makes the traveling feel a little bit more special. So if I have time and I have the space, I'll always bring a face mask. I generally, when it comes to my skincare, when I travel, I'll stick to the basics because I don't like to lug a ton of stuff around and I hate having an overfull cosmetics case. It just gets really heavy. Like I like to travel light. In terms of body and hair care, I would say I pretty much always travel with my own lotion, like a small travel size of lotion in my skincare bag so that I can keep my body hydrated and stuff after I shower. I'm pretty rigid about lotioning up my feet and my body when I'm home. So this is sort of my way of bringing that with me on my routine. If I'm going to a hotel, I'll just use whatever they have in the hotel. I'm not really super specific about that. And I have lotion at home in my parents' house. So like when I go home there, then I don't need to bring it. But I do really try to take care of the skin on my body too while I'm traveling. Although in terms of priority, like my face skincare is more important to me for those periods of time. For hair, I do travel with my Dyson. I have a Dyson Airwrap. I've had it for years. I got it as a Christmas gift in 2021, so I've had it for like 4 years now. Can't live without it. I don't know why people say it's not worth the hype. Like I use just the blow dry brush and I love it. You don't have to travel with tons of different tools. Like I just think it's the best thing ever. So I do always travel with that because when I travel, like I like to maintain my appearance, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. But what I do is I actually have a little kit for my travel hair care and like travel essentials, and I never change them out, like unless something runs out. And then that just makes traveling a lot easier when I'm packing. I can just grab my kit and in there it has like a heat protector and a hair oil and a little travel shampoo and conditioner and my razor and like all that kind of stuff. And so it just expedites the process of packing for travel, and I also like only have my essential things in there. So I would recommend doing something like that if you find that you travel a lot and you never know what you want to bring. Okay, so those are all of the little things I do in the menu that I choose from, I guess, for when I'm traveling to feel my best, especially during the holidays. I think it's important to keep in mind that like your version of a travel menu doesn't need to be super complicated, but you need to think about what are your categories? You can use mine if you want. And what are the couple of things that you can pick from to feel your best and feel more normal when you're traveling so that you don't completely abandon yourself and abandon your routine just because you're somewhere else. The holidays really are all about connection, and it's a lot harder to be present and to connect with people when you aren't feeling good internally and about yourself. So taking the time to stick to elements of your routine really can make such a big difference. So in this season, I'd recommend you build out your travel menu. I'd love to hear some of the things you do when you travel that make you feel your best. Write down a few things that help you feel grounded. Maybe it's journaling. It could be going for a walk. It could be saying no to different plans or different family events that might drain you. Be selfish and really don't be afraid to take care of yourself as we get into this very, very busy season. So with that, I know this is a shorter episode, but it's also the holidays, it's Thanksgiving week, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. If you enjoyed this, let me know, and happy Thanksgiving if you are in the US, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to leave me a review. Make sure to follow me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next week.